I remember the sound first, an iron shriek slicing through fog. The train slowed, its wheels grinding like they were protesting the stop. I blinked awake, my forehead pressed against the window, and for a moment, I didn't know where I was. The last thing I recalled was falling asleep somewhere past midnight, my ticket tucked safely in my coat pocket, train 47 to Marenshire, where my sister waited for me. But when I looked outside, the sign at the platform didn't say Marenshire Station. It said something else. Wicklow's End. I frowned. I'd never heard of it. No one was supposed to get off here. And yet, when I glanced around, the carriage was empty. Completely empty. My heart stuttered. The overhead lights flickered once, twice, then went dark. And in the reflection of the blackened window, I saw someone standing behind me. A shadow, a figure. Too close. I spun around, but the aisle was bare. Only the faint echo of breathing lingered, though I wasn't sure if it was mine. Then, without warning, the train lurched and began to move again. Backward. Not forward, not toward Marenshire, but back into the fog. And before I could think, I realized something that made my skin crawl. This wasn't the train I had boarded. I stumbled down the narrow aisle, my shoes slipping on the worn linoleum as the train picked up speed. The windows showed nothing but gray. Fog pressed against the glass like a living thing, swallowing the world outside. "Hello," I called out, my voice trembling despite my effort to sound composed. "Is anyone here?" No answer. Just the steady, rhythmic thunk-thunk of the wheels. Then, from the front car, I heard the faint clink of metal. Footsteps. Slow, deliberate, getting closer. I turned toward the sound, expecting to see the conductor. When he finally appeared, I almost felt relief, until I realized something was wrong. He wore the right uniform, dark coat, cap pulled low. But his name tag was blank. The fabric of his sleeve was torn, frayed at the edges as if he'd been wearing it for years. Maybe decades. "Excuse me," I said, stepping forward. "I think I'm on the wrong train. I was supposed to be going to Marenshire." The conductor tilted his head, slowly, like a bird listening for something deep underground. Then he smiled. "You are," he said softly. "You just haven't arrived yet." A cold rush climbed my spine. "What does that mean?" He didn't answer. Instead, he reached into his pocket and held out a small paper stub. Old, yellowed, brittle. "This was yours once," he whispered. When I looked down, I saw my name printed on it. But the date. The date was 13 years ago. I stared at the ticket in his hand, the paper trembling between us like a fragile thing that might shatter if I breathed too hard. 13 years ago? I whispered. "That's impossible. I wasn't even." But I stopped. Because I was alive 13 years ago. I was 20 then, the same as my sister is now. And suddenly, the fog outside pressed harder against the windows, as though listening. The conductor smiled faintly, like someone who's already heard my confusion 1,000 times. "Check the list," he murmured, motioning toward a clipboard that hung beside the cabin door. I didn't want to, but my hand moved on its own. The paper was yellowed, ink faded in places, the names written in looping script. There were dozens. Then I found mine. Evelyn Hart. Seat 9C. Beside it, under the status column, was a single word written in red ink. Returned. The train lurched, the lights dimmed again, and when I looked up, the conductor was gone. Only the clipboard swung slowly on its nail, tapping the metal wall in a rhythmic tick, tick, tick. I turned back toward the carriage and froze. Someone was sitting in seat 9C, and my breath caught in my throat. Seat 9C was halfway down the carriage, near the window. The woman sitting there wore a pale gray coat, exactly like mine. Her hair fell the same way too, in loose curls that brushed her shoulders. For a wild moment, I thought it was my reflection in the window. But the train jolted again, and she turned her head toward me. Her face was my own. Not similar. Not resembling. Mine. I stumbled back, hitting the seat behind me. What is this?" I whispered. The other me just stared, expression calm, detached, like she'd been waiting. Then she spoke, her voice soft but perfectly clear. "You fell asleep," she said. "You shouldn't have." My heart hammered. "What do you mean? Who are you?" She smiled faintly, but it was wrong, like a smile drawn by someone who didn't quite understand how. "I'm the one who stayed behind," she said. "When you left the first time." I didn't understand any of it. My knees felt weak. "Left where?" Her eyes flicked toward the fog outside. "Wicklow's End. That's where everyone comes when they've mistaken the way home." And before I could reply, she lifted her hand and pressed it against the window. The fog outside swirled in response, shapes forming, dissolving, faces pressing briefly against the glass, whispering. Then she turned back to me and said quietly, almost kindly, "You don't have long this time, Evelyn." The faces in the fog moved like ripples under water. Old men, children, women with hollow eyes, all pressing forward, mouthing words I couldn't hear. Each time the train clattered over a rail joint, one of them vanished into the mist, only to be replaced by another. My double lowered her hand, and frost crept from her fingertips across the glass. "They remember you," she said. "They thought you wouldn't come back." My voice broke. "Come back from where?" She tilted her head, studying me. "The river." A shiver went through me so violently, I had to grip the seat to keep from falling. I did remember a river, black water, rain, headlights cutting through fog, but that was years ago, and I had made it out. I knew I had. My sister had pulled me up, coughing, shaking. I had survived. But the other me only smiled sadly. "You didn't." The lights flickered, and the train's whistle shrieked. The fog outside flared white, and for an instant, I saw the reflection of the water's surface, my face staring up from beneath it, eyes open, hair floating like weeds. I stumbled back, heart pounding. No, I'm alive. I got on this train yesterday. I have a ticket." The woman in 9C nodded gently. "You did. We all do." Then she leaned forward, her voice a whisper colder than the frost crawling across the window. "But no one ever leaves Wicklow's End twice." The train screeched, slowing once more. My heart leapt, hoping, praying, that maybe this would be Marenshire after all. That maybe everything was just a dream bleeding into reality. But when the doors opened, fog poured in like smoke, heavy and slow, and through it I could just make out a platform, broken boards, a crooked sign swaying on a single nail. Wicklow's End. Only now the sign looked different. Weathered. Burnt at the edges. Beneath the name, someone had scratched another word with a knife or maybe fingernails. Departures final. I turned to the woman, my double, but the seat was empty. The frost on the window was melting, dripping down like tears. Something in me snapped. I couldn't sit there waiting anymore. I stepped off the train. The air outside was damp and heavy, smelling faintly of river silt and rusted iron. I could hear faint music somewhere, an old piano playing the same few notes over and over again, off-key and far away. The platform stretched on, impossibly long, vanishing into fog. I started walking. Each step echoed as though I were underground. Then, ahead of me, I saw a small wooden booth, a ticket counter, its glass cracked. Inside sat a man in a black coat, his eyes hidden behind round glasses. Before I could speak, he said softly, without looking up, "You're late, Evelyn Hart. 13 years late." The man's voice was calm, almost kind, but it carried a weight that made the air feel colder. I missed my stop," I stammered. "I shouldn't be here. I was going to Marenshire." He gave a small, humorless smile. Everyone says that at first. He shuffled through a stack of papers, each yellowed and curling at the edges. "Marenshire, Briarpoint home. They're all the same place, once you've crossed over." "Crossed over," I repeated, though I already knew what he meant. He slid a piece of parchment through the cracked glass. It wasn't a ticket this time. It was a manifest, a list of names written in looping ink. Dozens, maybe hundreds. My eyes scanned the columns until I found mine again. Evelyn Hart confirmed. Arrival, October 29th. "Arrival," I whispered. not departure. He nodded. No one departs from Wicklow's End, Miss Hart. The tracks only run one way now. Something hot burned in my chest, a desperate defiance I didn't know I still had. Then I'll walk, I said. I'll find my way out. He looked up for the first time. His glasses caught the dim light, and behind them, his eyes were pale, so pale they seemed almost colorless. You can try, he murmured, tapping the desk with one gloved finger. But the fog doesn't let go. It remembers who belongs to it. I turned and started walking down the platform, the sound of my footsteps fading into mist. Behind me, his voice followed, soft as the wind through reeds. Don't forget to look back, Evelyn. It's polite to wave goodbye to yourself. The fog thickened until the platform disappeared behind me, leaving only the faint sound of the train's whistle, low and mournful, drifting through the air like a memory that refused to die. Ahead, a faint outline began to form, a bridge, narrow and ancient-looking, stretching across a dark chasm filled with swirling mist. The boards beneath my feet groaned when I stepped onto them, old wood soaked through with years of fog and sorrow. Each step made a sound that wasn't quite my own, like another pair of feet walked in rhythm with me, just half a beat behind. I glanced back. No one was there. Halfway across, I heard whispering, faint, fragmented words rising from below the bridge. Come back. You left us. It's cold down here. I froze, clutching the railing. The mist below seemed to stir, and from it, hands began to emerge, pale, reaching, trembling as though they could almost touch me. I stumbled forward, nearly running now, until the whispers turned to wails. One voice, clearer than the rest, called my name. Evelyn. I stopped dead. That voice, so familiar. My sister's voice. I leaned over the side, heart pounding. The mist parted just enough for me to see a reflection in the dark water below. It wasn't my sister's face. It was mine. Eyes wide, lips moving, and the reflection whispered, "You were never supposed to wake up." The bridge shuddered, splitting with a thunderous crack. I screamed, clutching the rail as boards dropped into the darkness below. And then, silence. Only the sound of breathing behind me. Slow. Familiar. My own, the breath behind me was ragged, shallow, exactly like mine when I was afraid. I turned slowly, the air thick with the taste of iron and fog. Standing at the other end of the fractured bridge was her again. The other Evelyn. But now she looked different. Her skin was damp, as if she'd just stepped out of the river she claimed I'd never left. Water dripped from her hair in slow, steady rivulets that darkened her coat. "Stop running," she said softly. "You'll only end up where you began." I backed away until my heels brushed the splintered edge of the bridge. "You're not real," I whispered. "You're part of this place. A trick." Her lips curved into something like pity. "If I'm not real," she said, "then who's been wearing your body all these years?" The fog pulsed, and suddenly I remembered, flashes, my sister at the hospital bed, her tears falling on my hand, machines humming, the weight of stillness pressing on my chest. I had woken up, hadn't I? I'd gone home. I'd seen her again, hadn't I? The other me stepped closer, her eyes reflecting the gray glow of the mist. "You dreamed of waking up," she murmured. "You borrowed time that wasn't yours. But dreams can't hold forever." "I don't believe you," I shouted, my voice echoing into the endless dark. Her expression softened. "You don't have to. The train believes for you." A whistle blew, close, deafening, and from somewhere in the fog behind her, headlights bloomed white. The train was coming again, backwards toward the bridge. And she smiled with my mouth as the ground began to shake. The rails screamed as the train tore through the mist, headlights blinding, the fog swirling around it like a living storm. I threw my arm up to shield my eyes, heart pounding so hard it drowned out everything else. The other me didn't move. She stood at the far end of the bridge, calm and still, her hair lifting slightly in the rush of air as the train thundered closer. "Get off the bridge," I yelled. "It'll hit you," but she just smiled. It already did. The words barely reached me before the train passed straight through her. Through her, and then through me. Cold, so cold it felt like knives of ice, ripped through my chest. The sound was deafening, steel shrieking, wind howling, voices crying out all at once. For an instant, I saw faces pressed against the windows as the train roared by. They weren't passengers. They were echoes, versions of me, laughing,
crying,
screaming. And then the train was gone. Silence again. Only the groaning of the broken bridge beneath my feet. I looked up. The other Evelyn was gone, but in her place, on the wooden planks where she had stood, lay a small silver locket. I picked it up with shaking hands and opened it. Inside was a photograph, me and my sister, taken years ago at the riverbank. Only something was wrong. In the picture, I was missing my reflection in the water. There was just my sister smiling alone. And scrawled beneath the image, in faded ink, were the words, "For the one who never came back." The bridge shuddered once more, and then gave way. I fell.
Down.
Into the cold, waiting dark. The plunge stole every breath I had. The air vanished, replaced by freezing weight and darkness pressing against me from all sides. I opened my mouth to scream, but the river filled it instead, icy, heavy, endless. The current dragged me downward. Not fast, but purposeful, as if it knew exactly where I belonged. My arms flailed, caught in something soft and shifting. Fabric?
No, hair.
Too much of it. I turned and saw them. Dozens of figures suspended in the black water, drifting like drowned paper dolls. Their faces pale and smooth, eyes open. Every one of them had my face. Some were smiling faintly. Others stared blankly upward, as though waiting for someone to come and claim them. "No," I choked, thrashing, forcing my way upward. I'm not one of you." A hand caught my ankle. Cold fingers firm. I looked down and saw one of the others gripping me, her mouth opening soundlessly, bubbles spilling like broken pearls. Her lips formed words I couldn't hear. I kicked free, broke the surface, and gasped. The river stretched endlessly on both sides, thick fog curling along its banks. On the far shore, faint lights glimmered, warm, yellow, alive. Marenshire. It had to be. I started swimming, each stroke agony, my muscles trembling from the cold. The closer I got, the dimmer the lights seemed, flickering like candles dying in the wind. Then I heard it, a voice from behind me, soft and unbearably familiar. "Evelyn, come back." I froze. It was my sister's voice. But when I turned, I saw her standing on the opposite bank. The wrong one, hand outstretched into the mist. The one leading back to Wicklow's end. The river hissed softly between us, each ripple a whisper that I could almost understand. My sister stood there on the fog-drenched shore, still as a statue, her eyes wide and glistening. "Evelyn," she called again, her voice breaking on the second syllable. "Please come back. You don't belong there." Her words tangled in the mist, warping until I couldn't tell which side they meant. The lights behind her, behind Marenshire, seemed to fade with every heartbeat. "I'm coming," I shouted, forcing myself toward the brighter bank. The water thickened, turning sluggish, heavy as oil. My arms burned. Then I heard it again, my own voice, faint and close to my ear. "She isn't calling you. She's calling the one who woke up." The voice came from beneath the surface, from the darkness tugging at my legs. "No," I whispered, kicking harder. "No." The fog pulsed, and suddenly I could see the other me in the water below, reaching up, her hand grazing my ankle. Her eyes were open this time, full of quiet pleading. "She's waiting for her Evelyn," the voice said. "You're the one who never left the river." On the far bank, my sister stepped closer to the edge. "Please," she cried, "take my hand." I was only a few strokes away when something unseen wrapped around my waist and pulled me back with violent force. The water surged over my head, freezing the scream in my throat. Through the blur of current and darkness, I saw the two shores, both fading, both receding, until there was nothing left but gray water and the sound of the train whistle. Echoing from somewhere deep below did I sink again, this time without struggle. My limbs had turned numb, my heartbeat dulled to a faraway thud, like someone knocking from another world. The river no longer felt cold, it felt quiet. Shapes began to glow beneath me, pale lanterns drifting in the blackness. As I descended, I realized they weren't lanterns at all. They were souls, faces turned upward, each one illuminated from within by a faint silver light. They whispered as I passed. Not words, but memories mine. The sound of laughter at the riverbank. My sister's voice saying, "You're safe now." The faint click of a camera before everything went wrong. And then I saw it, a reflection on the water's surface above me. It wasn't the Evelyn I'd been fighting to be. It was the one who had lived all these years. The one who'd borrowed my name, my heartbeat, my sister's faith. She was standing beside the river, dry and whole, looking down into the water. Our eyes met. For the first time, I understood what the conductor meant when he said I'd borrowed time. My waking life, those 13 years, had been hers, not mine. She lifted a hand, hesitant, like someone saying goodbye to their own ghost. I wanted to reach for her, to thank her for keeping my place warm, but the river held me still. The light around me dimmed. One by one, the faces sank deeper, their glow fading into black. Then, through the silence, a familiar hum rose, the sound of rails beneath steel. The train was coming again, somewhere in the depths below. And I knew what it wanted this time. It wasn't to take me anywhere. It was coming to keep me. The sound of the train grew louder beneath the surface, an impossible roar that trembled through the water, like thunder through bone. The river began to churn, spiraling into a dark vortex that pulled at everything. The drifting faces, the faint lights, me. I tried to resist, but the current was merciless. The deeper I sank, the clearer the shapes became. The black engine of the train cutting through the water, its headlight a pale, searching eye. It slowed as it reached me. The door slid open soundlessly, revealing the familiar carriage, the same flickering lamps, the same cracked seats. Waiting, eternal. And there, in the doorway, stood the conductor. The blank name tag gleamed faintly. He extended a gloved hand toward me. "It's time, Miss Hart," he said softly. "We've held your seat long enough." I wanted to scream, to refuse, but the words never came. My lungs filled with quiet instead. My body moved on its own, rising, stepping through the water as if it were air. When I crossed the threshold, the river stilled. The carriage lights steadied. I felt the seat beneath me again, seat 9C. My hands rested on my lap, pale, trembling. Across from me sat the other Evelyn, the living one, the reflection that had once haunted the window. She looked tired, her eyes rimmed with tears. She met my gaze. "You're ready now," she whispered. "You've found your way home." The conductor closed the door. The whistle blew once, long and low. Outside, the fog began to fade, revealing nothing but endless water below and a pale, dawn-colored sky above. The train began to move, not forward, not backward, but downward, slipping quietly beneath the surface, back into the deep. And as it sank, the voices in the water whispered all around me, soft, sorrowful, resigned. "Welcome home, Evelyn Hart." The train slid deeper and deeper until light no longer reached us, only a faint shimmer of the surface far above, growing dimmer with every passing second. The rhythm of the wheels slowed, softened, until it wasn't sound anymore but pulse, my pulse, steady, inevitable. Then, suddenly, the motion stopped. The doors opened with a sigh, and there it was, the station beneath everything. Wicklow's End. But not the version I'd seen before. This one was whole. Lanterns glowed softly along the platform, their light golden and calm. The air smelled faintly of rain and lilac. Rows of people waited silently, faces peaceful, every one of them familiar. Echoes of passengers who'd ridden the same journey, found the same end. The conductor stepped aside and gestured for me to leave the carriage. His voice was gentle now, almost kind. You've arrived. I stood, my legs unsteady, and stepped onto the platform. The fog that had always hidden the distance parted at last. Beyond the tracks, there was no darkness, only a long road winding upward through light. And at the far end of it, a figure stood waiting. Small, still, holding a single white lily. My sister. Not as I'd last seen her, but younger, smiling the way she used to, when we thought the world was simple. Tears blurred my vision. I wanted to run to her, but the conductor's hand rested lightly on my shoulder. "Don't rush," he murmured. "Time moves differently here. You've already waited long enough." I turned to thank him, but he was gone. Only the empty carriage remained, its lights flickering once before going dark forever. I took a breath, deep, full, and easy, and stepped forward onto the road of light. The whispers in the air grew softer, fading into something like a lullaby. For the first time in 13 years, I felt weightless. As I reached my sister, she smiled and whispered, "Welcome home." And somewhere far above, a train whistle blew one final, gentle note. Not of arrival, not of departure, but of rest.